while we say the Pledge of Allegiance at this neon flag. Okay. There we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. I appreciate it. And I'm going to turn us straight over to our Toastmaster for the evening, Steve, so we can make up a little bit of time. Steve, take it away.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Once again, almost caught in the web of real estate. Blah. I was out showing a house, and of course it always takes a little longer than I expect, and then the Etch-a-Sketch syndrome kicks in. The beauty of Zoom, of course, is that here I am able to attend the meeting as I sit here in this lovely little park in downtown Kashmir, or on the periphery of Kashmir, I should say. A wonderful evening. It looks like we have pretty much everybody except Barbara in her delinquent role. Otherwise, we're looking like we're ready to go. And at this point, I would turn the meeting over to our general evaluator to explain the evening's machinations. Mary Cyree.
Thank you, Steve, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you all for coming this lovely evening. It looks really nice outside, at least from Steve's viewpoint. It's pretty nice up in Kashmir. I was thinking about evaluations the other day, and it occurs to me there are those evaluations that are subjective, which is emanating from a person's emotions or from their opinions. And those are the speech evaluator and the general evaluator. So let's hear first from our speech evaluator, Christina, who will be evaluating Lloyd Smith's speech tonight. Christina?
Thank you, Mary. Tonight, Lloyd is doing the Reflect on Your Path speech for the engaging humor path. The speech length is 10 to 12 minutes. The purpose of the project is for Lloyd to reflect on his growth during the completion of an entire path. The purpose of the speech is for Lloyd to share some aspect of his growth during the completion of his path. I will evaluate his speech when called upon to do so and invite all of you to make notes as well. Share them with Lloyd in the chat after his speech is completed. Thank you.
Very good. And we have objective evaluators, and that is not influenced by personal feelings or interpretations. It's based on facts and unbiased. That would be the timer, grammarian, and awe counter. And I will be taking the role of timer tonight. Lloyd's speech is 10 to 12 minutes. Lloyd, I'll give you the green file folder at 10 minutes, the yellow at 11 minutes. At 12 minutes, I'll give you the red. Sound okay? Okay. We will have table topics tonight, 1 to 2 minutes. At 1 minute, you'll see green, minute and a half yellow, 2 minutes red. The speech evaluation is 2 to 3 minutes. Here's what you see at 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes is yellow, and 3 minute mark is red. And as timer, I will report back at the end of the meeting. Our next objective evaluator is the grammarian. Today, that's Selena Danko. Selena, tell us what you're going to do and tell us about that word of the day. You're muted.
Gets me every time. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. As the grammarian for this evening, it will be my responsibility to pay close attention to all of you as speakers, listen to your language usage, and take note of any improper language, as well as any outstanding words, quotes, sayings, or thoughts. It is also my duty and my privilege to announce the word of the day. The word is hypertrophy, and it means the enlargement of an organ or tissue from the increase in size of its cells. Used in a sentence, a hypertrophy workout is designed to increase the size and strength of your muscles. I could use a little help with that. Mine are kind of puny. Through exercise, usually by lifting weights. I felt that hypertrophy worked well with our theme for the day of adapting and resisting, because through a hypertrophy workout, your muscles learn to adapt and grow to resistance. So back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Well, you know, Selena, some people say that the brain is a muscle. I'm going to go with that. And through Toastmasters, my brain has experienced hypertrophy, hypertrophy in the area that controls public speaking. It's awkward, but it works. Our third objective evaluator is the all counter, and Pat Whitfield is fulfilling that role for us tonight. Pat.
Thank you very much, Mary. I get to be the resident nitpicker. I know I say this every time I get to be the ah counter, but I look for all of those unintentional interruptions that disrupt the flow of speech. Things like well, so, like, but, and repetitions. All those things that patch instead of embroider this speech. So that's what I'll be listening for. Thank you.
Thank you. That helps us all. And as the final subjective evaluator today, I, as general evaluator, will report out at the end of the meeting on whatever I feel like talking about as general evaluator. Now I'd like to turn it back over to tonight's Toastmaster, Steve Schwind.
Thank you, Mary. I was thinking about a sea cucumber suddenly. I believe their defense mechanism employs hypertrophy to increase their size and repel perpetrators of harm. I don't know if that's exactly right as far as what they do or not, but it sure sounds like it. Hypertrophy. I'm going to practice that a little bit. Say it a couple of times. Tonight, Lloyd Smith is going to be speaking to us. At the end of every long-term project, it is wise to think about what worked and what didn't, what could have been done or avoided, and most importantly, what was learned from the experience. That's why a speech called Reflect on Your Path is required at the end of every path. This evening, Lloyd Smith will present his speech to conclude his engaging humor path. This is the third path he's completed, so he's learned a number of things about why the Pathways program is designed as it is and how to get the most out of it. Welcome, Lloyd Smith, and Taking Humor Seriously.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. This Reflect on Your Speech project is something that annoys the heck out of almost everybody who's in the Pathways group in Facebook. And they seem to think it's a sort of a make work thing. It's really not, though, because as you pointed out in your well-written introduction that I actually wrote, it's always important to reflect on what you've done after any kind of a project, especially something that's long-term. Because if you don't, you might miss critical lessons, both the good kind of critical lesson and the bad kind. So that's what this speech is. It's supposed to be a reflection on what I've done. The overall project material says that one of the ways to do this is by presenting a detailed explanation of exactly what I did in the past. I don't really want to do that. I'm going to do a sort of a semi version of that, and I think it'll make sense as I go along. First of all, one thing that most people don't understand is why is there Pathways as opposed to the traditional program that was in Toastmasters for 30 some years before Pathways, what's now called the Legacy program. In 2010, the International Board of Directors decided that they wanted to revitalize the educational program. The main reason was that the materials were getting stale. They looked old in terms of the way the books were, the manuals were printed. They were written in kind of a stilted officialese or academic sort of diction. And even worse, though, they weren't a real curriculum. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment or two. But the goal of modernizing or revitalizing the program was to offer more relevance to what people were doing outside of Toastmasters, not just within it. In 2012, a woman named Pat Johnson showed up as the keynote for our district conference, which was in Pendleton, I believe, that year. She's a past international president from Vancouver, BC, and she was the chairperson of the Toastmasters International main committee that was overseeing the development of the new program. It was very interesting to listen to her. And as I listened, I thought, you know, this is really going to change everything. And it would be good to get ahead of this as opposed to get run over by it later on, and the running over is what has happened to a number of people. Now, I like the legacy program a lot, and I was active in it. I counted up today, I ended up with 7 competent communicators, 5 advanced communicator bronzes, 4 advanced communicator silvers, 2 advanced communicator golds, 7 competent leaders, 3 advanced leader bronzes, 1 advanced leader silver, and 1 DTM. Now, that's the problem with the system. Once you went through the first cycle, you did one of everything. There was nothing to do but start repeating it. And so that's what I did. That's what most people did. That's why you get people like Ed Keeney from Pasco, who has multiple DTMs. He kept going through the program. Well, he just kept grinding out DTMs. He's got 14 of them now. So the difference between the legacy program and the Pathways program is that the Pathways is what the curriculum and assessment people call vertically and horizontally integrated. In other words, if you look vertically up and down the list of things to do, you can see how the connections go down the line and hook everything together. If you do it horizontally across the paths, you can see that same set of connections. In the old system, it was kind of a Chinese menu thing because there were 15 advanced manuals and you could simply pick any 2 or 3 of them and mix and match, and they weren't really connected together. So I ended up doing presentation mastery as my first path and visionary communication as my second. Those are probably the most common combination of paths that people do. And I like them a lot. And I decided as the third one, remember we all got a freebie path along the line. As the third one, I picked this engaging humor one because it looked like a good path. And it turned out that it was. I'm really glad that I picked it. The interesting thing about it is, though, the way it's set up, and I'll go through kind of what I did, not in a hyper detailed way, but kind of in a broad way, and it'll illustrate that what I said earlier about the integration both horizontally and vertically. It started off with level 1, like all the paths do, and level 1 is a uniform. The same 3 projects for all of the paths, no matter what. People complain about that, but to me, it's no big deal. I gave 7 icebreakers in the old system, and I've done 5 of them now in the new system. None of them were the same. It doesn't take that much to figure out how to personalize or individualize an icebreaker. Pardon me. So I did those 3 speeches, then moved on to level 2. Now that's where the paths start to diverge. If you look at a chart of the paths, you'll see that there's just one project that every path has, and that's Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring, where you talk about a time when you were a protege. Then the other 2 are different for each of the paths. And I ended up with 2 of them called, what were they called? Oh, Connect with Your Audience and Know Your Sense of Humor. And those were just basic speeches. That's what it amounted to. The materials are very well done, though, and that's true throughout the Pathways program. They're much longer, they're more detailed. There are links to videos and references and that sort of thing, which did not exist in the old program. Once I did level 2, then it was time to move to level 3. Now, level 3 is where every path starts to really get to where those connections to the real world, I guess you'd say, are. there was one required project called Engage the Audience with Your Sense of Humor. And that was, again, a regular speech. And there was a bunch of material in the pathway stuff about, what humor is and how to do it and literary devices and whatnot. It was actually pretty good stuff. After that, though, there were 12 different possible electives. And the requirement was to pick 2 of them. And I picked 2 that I thought would be difficult to do with a humor path. One of them was called Focus on the Positive. The assignment was to keep a journal and then explain how you were avoiding or how you were focusing on positive thoughts as opposed to negative. The other one was called Use Descriptive Language. I wanted to do those because there is a big difference between being funny and being humorous. Funny is like late night comedian, stand-up jokes like that. Humorous is kind of a tone, if that makes any sense. It's easier to see it than it is to explain it. But in any event, I thought those were very good projects and they seemed to work pretty well. Level 4 brought a whole new level of difficulty into it. The required project was called The Power of Humor in Impromptu Speaking. And the way that worked, it was very weird. There was a list of, I think, 15 or so impromptu speech topics. I was supposed to give it to the Toastmaster. The Toastmaster would pick any 2 off the list, tell me what they were, and I was supposed to give a 2 to 3 minute speech, like a table topics is what it amounts to, but employ the elements of humor. Now, working humor into impromptu speaking is tricky because you have to adapt to the topic on the fly. Some of the topics didn't lend themselves well to humor, and as it happened, our Toastmaster of the evening, Mr. Eric Stepper, managed to pick those 2, and I'm not sure whether that was deliberate or not, but anyway, I overcame it. It was a very good exercise, though, because having to try to introduce elements of humor on the fly is very different from writing a speech, say, thinking about the lines you're going to use and so on. There were also 8 electives in that path, and all of them were lengthier projects than our normal. The one I picked was the question and answer session. And there again, I did that because I thought it would be very challenging to introduce humor into what amounted to an impromptu thing. There was supposed to be a speech and then followed by a 15-minute question and answer thing. It tended to work out very well, though. I was pleased with it. Finally, level 5. Level 5 in all the paths is very demanding. There was one required project called Deliver Your Message with Humor, which was supposed to be an 18 to 22 minute keynote type speech that involved humorous elements and whatnot. I did that at an Audible Experience meeting because that club is set up for those much longer speeches. They're 2-hour meetings, and so they fit in. They don't do table topics or anything like that. Then there were 6 possible electives, and that's where I realized there was a real opportunity here, because one of them was called Prepare to Speak Professionally. And that is also supposed to be an 18 to 22 minute keynote style speech. So I did the same speech. That is, I rewrote the speech, revised the speech for the second time around, gave it at the same audience. Now, it was roughly a year apart, and it turns out no one remembered it from the first time. So it was either wonderful and nobody remembered any of the crappy parts of it, or it was not worth listening to. In any event, it was an interesting exercise to rewrite it. I like revising speeches. I think it's very valuable to do. For one of my competent communicator manuals, I actually revised 10 previous speeches I had done and rewrote them. And it's worth a lot to do that. Revise means to re-see, revision. And when you look at it again and think, how could this be done better? Yeah, you can get a lot out of that. It sounds like a sleazy way to avoid work, but it's actually not. When I did the speech the second time, the problem I had with it was that I veered off course and ended up going down an alley that was in the first version of the speech. And then when I realized what I was doing, I thought, oh, this is a problem. I found a way to veer back, but in the process, I lost 2 minutes of content. And so it came out a little bit shorter than it was supposed to. It came out about probably 15 minutes or so instead of the 18 to 22. That's the breaks. things happen like that. They've happened to me in contests too. But that same speech with the same form was a rare opportunity. I can't think of any way I could have done that in the legacy system. And so I was really pleased to see that. Now, what did I learn from this? The whole path, that is. That's one of the things I'm supposed to do in this speech. What I learned is that I already knew most of the things about humor that were listed in the various projects and whatnot, but it was very good to see their take on it, and some of their resources, the links to the videos and the printed resources and whatnot, were really very valuable, I thought. Does this apply to the outside world? Yeah, I think it does. Generally speaking, when somebody who is speaking to any kind of an audience can introduce elements of humor. Now, remember, I'm differentiating between humor and being funny, because there are some topics you can't be funny about, but most topics you can be humorous about. I think that's a valuable thing. And so I thought this path was really well worth doing, and it was a great bargain since I got it for free. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lloyd. That was a very meaty topic. Timer, can we have a minute on the clock to provide our thoughts and comments to Lloyd for his consideration?
Okay, there's a minute, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Now we have time in our meeting to move to extemporaneous speaking, and tonight our table topics master will regale us with, I'm sure, a wonderful selection of questions. Would you welcome Eric Stepper to the podium?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. This is the time meeting, and like Steve said, we learned to speak extemporaneously, try to think off our feet. And this is probably more of the way that we encounter the world and giving speeches. So this is something that we should practice and be good at. Remember, the theme is adapting and resisting, and the word of the day is hypertrophy. Try and sneak those in. What you want to do is just take your time and gather yourself, not be afraid of the silence, and try and have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And try and link your thoughts succinctly without saying those nasty little filler words. Everybody has had a speaking role here. So we'll just start in and see where it goes. Hypertrophy. What one thing do you wish you were better at resisting? What one thing do you wish you were better at resisting? Jackie.
I knew you were going to call on me first. What one thing do I wish I was better at resisting? One thing. The siren call. My bionic appendage. I wish I could resist my phone, especially when I get up in the morning. I have been reading some articles lately on developing morning routines and becoming more of a morning person because I am not. And one of the tips is to avoid getting on your phone right after you wake up, because it puts you in that mode of, I've got to do something. And it would be nice to wake up with peace and motivation and a different feel than I have to do something. I'm still working on that. I'm still trying to resist that siren call. I'll let you know when it happens. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Siren call, okay. What recent adaptation has made you proud of yourself or amazed you that it happened? What recent adaptation, and this is a COVID environment, so there's that too. What recent adaptation has made you proud of yourself or amazed you that it actually happened? Selena.
What recent adaptation has made me proud of myself? Well, some of you may or may not know this, but I am an ultra marathoner. That's one of my hobbies. Takes up a lot of my time. I find myself, especially in the winter time, challenged with time on my feet. It can be hard. It's dark outside, the siren call of inside and warmth, and my dog and my family takes precedent over time on the trails when it's cold and wintry outside. I literally go through a case of hand warmers every winter because I can't stand having my hands cold. I just sometimes spend so much time dreading going outside that it's hard. Just getting out the door is a challenge in the winter time. And then as it starts to warm up and the days get longer, I find it's easier. And then daylight savings time happens. And I take this big giant step back in my training, but then I have all of these events, right? Normally, when there isn't a COVID year, there's events to look forward to. And so last year, there really weren't any events. So I really wasn't training for anything. And mind you, I'm not fast. I train to finish, not to beat out anybody else. I train to try and see the whole course, to see all the beauty of the natural environment that we're so blessed to be around. But also, as you travel around the Northwest, there's some amazing events out there that allow you to see some incredible things. But you do need to spend time on your feet in order to have hope of finishing. And so what I have found, and in my job really supports this, is that if I can commute by bus in the morning, which takes a certain amount of sacrifice, I can take my running clothes to work with me. I don't have a car there, and then I can run home from work. So I started doing that about 3 months ago, and I've been really good about it. And then I thought, well, what if I took the long way? So it's about 3.5 miles from my work at Columbia Station to my house. And I was doing that really well. And so I decided about 2 weeks ago that I was going to start going the long way, which is 8.5 miles to my house. So far, so good. For about 2 weeks, I think, I've been taking the long way home. So I guess I'm proud of myself for that. Sometimes I call it the evening slog, but I'm slogging out those 8.5 miles every single night. And it's sometimes hot, 80 degrees sometimes. The last couple of days, Saturday, I ran home after Earth Day, and it was a little warm. So I'm proud of myself for that. Thank you for the question, and back to you.
Excellent. And you should be proud of yourself. I like all the natural beauty around here too, Selena, but I take an automobile. we've had a lot of controversy about vaccines, not taking the vaccine, all that kind of stuff. Are you a vaccine resistor or adapter or adopter? Are you a vaccine resistor or adapter, adopter? Pat?
I'd have to say I'm a vaccine adopter. I get a flu shot every year because I don't want to experience the flu. I've had it in the past. Flu is miserable. So when we had the opportunity to get the COVID-19, I thought that was the wise thing to do. I went to the town Toyota Center for both of my shots. They handled it beautifully. I was incredibly impressed with their organization, how lovely all the young people were there from the National Guard and other organizations, and how kind they were to us. Therefore, I believe that I am an adopter. Now we're hearing that we might need to have a booster every year. I figure, oh, well, what the heck? I'm already doing a flu shot every year. Might as well do one of these. And you know, I've lived 81 years. I'd like to live not another 81 more, but my goal is to live to 100 and do it in good health. Therefore, you know, put the big A around me for adopter. Thank you.
Good job. My vice is dark chocolate. And I tell myself, and I take the countermeasures that I'm not going to eat ice cream. I'm not going to eat cake. I'm not going to eat donuts. And that's how I trick myself into telling myself that some dark chocolate every day is okay. What is your vice? And what countermeasures do you take to trick yourself into saying it's okay? What is your vice, and do you have trouble resisting? Steve?
My vice. Why is it sometimes these questions seem so hard? My vice is along the lines of, I don't know. I want to say that I have this propensity for putting what I like to do in front of some of the things that I have to do, because typically what happens is the things that I have to do, I can pull out at the 11th hour and get them accomplished anyway. I think about why that is. I love pressure situations, and I hate them too, because your anxiety level goes up, your blood pressure goes up, the craziness ensues. And if it doesn't pan out, why then you don't look like the hero. And I think therein lies the sick reason for liking pressure situations, is because I usually pull the rabbit out of the hat and I look like a hero. I also like doing the things that I like to do first, because I feel like I've burned the candle at both ends professionally for so long that it's time to do a little bit of the fun stuff and have it in front of some of the obligations, because I know my obligations have a little bit of a flex built into them, if you will. Probably sounds a little odd to say all that, but there's my vice. Doing what I want instead of what I'm supposed to do, which doesn't have anything to do with why I am sometimes late with Toastmasters. That's about doing the things that I have to do. And then Etch-a-Sketching. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Well, you pulled the rabbit out of the hat again. What major adapting have you had to do for this COVID environment? What major adapting have you had to do for this COVID environment, Mary? Christina will time.
Oh, okay. I haven't had to do any major adapting. I've had to do minor adapting. Go to the grocery store once a week instead of 5 times a week. I still walk every day, but I haven't seen my sewing friends for a long time. I haven't gone to the knitting guild for a long time because I'm just not enjoying online clubs like that. I think Toastmasters is perfect for Zoom. I kind of enjoy these meetings. I will prefer when I can see you all in person. But for my fiber arts, it just doesn't work. I was tickled to death when my fellow knitter, Tracy Gaussman, I think her last name is, opened Yarn Birds, local yarn store. And now I could go there and talk to somebody about knitting. And I even bought some yarn over the weekend because she had a big anniversary sale. But major adapting, I really haven't had to do. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of liking staying home and being quiet, just having people come stay in our studio once in a while and we meet new people and hear their stories, and that's great. The birds are coming back, and on my walk every morning, I say hi to the little, what did I see this? Give me a second. Western tanager, I saw this week. I know, they're the prettiest ones. They have an orange head and a yellow body. So no major adaptations, a lot of minor adaptations, but nothing major. Lucky me. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Excellent. We got a couple minutes. Anybody, and everybody's had their chance. Anybody have a burning desire to field one more? Raise your hand. Lloyd, okay. What are you better at adapting or resisting? What are you better at, adapting or resisting, Lloyd?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. I'm going to approach this speech by explaining why or how I came up with this topic. I was driving home from Home Depot last week once and came around a corner, and here in front of a house was a US flag on a flagpole, which is pretty common around here. And right below it was a flag that said, "Not my president," and a kind of a caricature of Joe Biden. And I looked at that and I thought, well, in one sense, Donald Trump was not my president. He definitely wasn't my choice. And I thought the guy was an odious buffoon, totally unsuited to the office. But the thing is, he was the president of the United States, whether I liked it or not. So he was my president. I mean, that's just the way things go. And I thought about that guy with his flag on his, the US flag was upside down, by the way, to indicate an emergency situation, due to apparently the impending socialist takeover. But in any event, I got to thinking, how is it that someone could decide, nope, I'm not going to do it? It's like the little kid picking up his football and stomping off of the playground because he's mad that he didn't get what he wanted. It just doesn't work that way. And even worse, if you think about it for a moment, if everybody had that attitude, it would not be possible to have the country that we have. There has to be a certain level of polity, no notion of commonness or something. So I like to think I'm a much better adapter, adapter than resistor. Resisting generally doesn't work. Whenever I've tried it in the past, it's usually failed. And it brings to mind that old 60s rock and roll song, "I fought the law and the law won." Well, the law is always going to win. It's bigger than we are. And so it's easier to get along, to figure out how to adapt than it is to resist. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Lloyd. Excellent job, guys. You always impress me. I'm very proud of this group. And now back to you, Mr. Toastmaster Steve.
Thank you, Eric. Well done on the questions. They kind of suggested to me that one could go a lot of ways with some of those questions or not want to. Also, I want to apologize for flitting around the countryside. I hope I'm not a distraction in this meeting. I've done this before where I've been on the move, and it's certainly unintentional, but my apologies if it's caused anybody any angst or discomfort. I think it's kind of cool in a way that Zoom allows us to be almost anywhere and everywhere and still participate. And also, I got to say that I practiced it like 12 times. Hypertrophy is exuding out of each and every one of the members of this club as I watch through the course of the meeting. There's my best lame effort. And I suppose I should now pass that baton to Mary to give us a review or an overview of our meeting.
Oh, see, I'm doing the same thing. I've been practicing it. Hypertrophy. Okay, I'll give up. It's too hard to say. But I'm sure that Christina has, I'm looking at the, no, I can't use it. I just can't get it into this sentence. Christina, please give us your evaluation of Lloyd's speech.
Thank you, Mary. Great speech again, Lloyd. Thank you for explaining the pathway system to us. It gets a little more clear each time we hear about it. You excelled at vocal variety, organization, engaging the audience, your introduction and conclusion, and incorporating stories. You explained pathways, as I mentioned, and what you enjoy about the new system, which I appreciated. You explained how you navigated a path and shared with us how the impromptu speaking speech challenged you a bit. That seemed to create an opportunity for hypertrophy as you navigated that challenge. Things you might want to work on as far as physical presentation, proximity to the screen, your gestures at waist height were cut off. I could see the top half of your hands, not your entire gesture. One thing that I kept looking for and never found was your reflection on your growth, which was in the purpose statement. To reflect on your growth during the completion of the path. You shared some challenges with us. I did not catch an aspect of growth other than the impromptu speaking that was a challenging bit. I would have liked to hear more about how that inspired growth in you. To challenge yourself, eye contact with the camera. Your eye contact was clearly with the people on the screen. That is the hardest thing to do, to look at that camera and not look at the responses of the audience. I can't imagine conquering that myself, but once again, it's something to be working on to challenge yourself in the future. I thoroughly enjoyed your speech. As I said, every time I hear you speak about pathways, it becomes a little more clear to me how the whole thing works. And I do appreciate that. Thank you. I look forward to hearing your next speech. Mary, back to you.
There I am, multitasking. and dropping my pencil, but I'm done making notes, so that's okay. I was timer today, so let's see how we all did. Lloyd, it was a long speech, 10 to 12 minutes. You did great. 12 minutes, 15 seconds. Table topics. Jackie clocked in at 1 minute, 23 seconds. Selena, 3 minutes, 24. Pat, you were at 1 minute, 14 seconds. Steve, 2 minutes, 10 seconds. Thank you, Christina, for timing me. I was 1 minute, 52 seconds. Lloyd's table topic was 1 minute, 54 seconds. Christina, your speech evaluation was spot on at 3 minutes. Good job. Let's hear from our grammarian, Selena. How did we do, Selena?
We had an excellent evening, Madam Toastmaster, and I am proud to present the grammarian's report for the evening. There was lots of hypertrophy happening as we learned how to use a new word today, exercising our cerebral muscles. Mary, you used hypertrophy twice. Steve, 4 times, several halves, but 4 complete times. Eric twice, and Christina once. Some things that I noticed, I didn't really hear improper use of the language, but I loved Lloyd's new definition of revise and representing a speech as a sleazy way to avoid work. He didn't really mean to redefine it that way. He just said it might seem that way, but it really isn't. He was really justifying it, but I thought that was an interesting way of putting it. And Jackie Graybill's referring to her phone as a bionic appendage. I have that same issue, not picking up my phone as soon as I get up to check on my word of the day in Words with Friends or whatever it is I'm interested in on my bionic appendage. And I like Pat Whitfield referring to her as a big A with a circle around it for adapter when it comes to vaccinations. So that's what I heard as the grammarian this evening. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed hearing that report. And Pat, you were counting ahs, ums, and other noises. How did we do?
You can decide how you did after I've done my report. The greatest sin of the night was the use of and, either by itself or in conjunction with something else. But here's everyone's performance from the voice and vision of the nitpicker. Jackie had 1 and. Christina was virginally clean, absolutely clean, nothing there. Selena had 1 well, 4 so's, 1 but, and an and so. Eric had 2 so's and 1 and. Mary had 1 so, 2 buts, and 1 and. Lloyd had 6 ums, 5 so's, 1 but, and 4 and so's. Steve had 1 and an and then. Therefore, you may judge yourselves. I'm not going to cast aspersions on anyone.
Okay, thank you for that. No dispersions being cast today. That's good. And I won't do that either as general evaluator. As a matter of fact, I'm going to keep it very brief so that we can adjourn on time. We did get a late start. You know, I like starting and ending on time. So I think if somebody's late, we just start anyway and deal with it. That's what we did when we met in person. Steve, you were worried that you were distracting. You know, after a year of this, I don't think you were. We're all getting kind of used to movement, and both you and Jackie are good at stopping video when you're doing something that could possibly be distracting. So I think it was okay. Christina, you gave, as usual, really a good evaluation. And I so appreciate that you are able to point out things that were done well, but importantly, giving people advice for what they could do better and something to work on. Lloyd's a tough one to give an evaluation on in that regard. You're nodding, and I am too, because I've done Lloyd evaluations. So bravo for you. Especially that you pointed out a missing speech objective. I think that's something that we forget to do in speech evaluations, is to really look at those objectives and did they meet the objective? So thank you for that. Now I'd like to turn the meeting back over to the president of our club, Jackie Graybill.
Thank you, Mary. You were right. Despite the hypertrophy of time at the beginning, we are actually doing fairly well. We could send, who would we send votes to, or should we just say that Lloyd won because he's the only speaker? What would we prefer? No, Mary wants us to vote. Okay. Okay, we're sending it to Christina.
Okay.
Fabulous. Thank you. And while we do that, Lloyd, is there anything that you would like to add?
Sure. This coming Saturday, Jackie will be speaking at the Division A International Speech Contest. She was the winner of the Area A1 contest 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever that was. And so if she manages to win in division, she will be one of the 5 contestants at the district contest. And she is flaunting her trophy, which looks suspiciously like a Toastmasters mug, but you can't read it, but it's actually engraved with her name and the Area A1 contest and so on. So that's a very cool thing. I don't know the link to the contest yet. The people organizing it have not yet revealed that secret. When they do, I'll send it out to everybody. So if you want to check in there on, I think the whole thing starts, is it 10 o'clock Saturday, Jackie? Do you know?
I think it's around, I think it's around 10. It's 9 or 10.
9:30 or 10. It's
Yeah.
not going to last very long because it's
Right.
a 5 speaker contest. So just one from each division or one from each area. No,
And
it's a
no
4.
no
Yeah.
evaluation, so we don't have
No
to test
evaluations or
anything.
anything. So it's going to be pretty quick. So anyway, we could all do the wave or something, while Jackie's speaking, but that's coming up this weekend.
I believe it starts at 9:30. That's what I have
Okay.
in my calendar, though that may not be exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah, I would guess the whole thing will fit within probably 45 minutes, maybe give or take a little bit.
Thank you, Lloyd. I appreciate that. And thank you for your support, y'all. It's gonna be fun. Do you have a winner for us, Christina?
Yes, I do. There were 2 speakers tonight who received votes. It was very close. The winner, though, is Lloyd. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Guess what? We're like 30 seconds before time. How about them apples? Oh, yeah. Thank you, everyone. Lovely evening. If I don't see you on Saturday, I will see you